McGlynn is in. I repeat, McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. This is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with your host, John McGlynn.
Was that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, yo, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. And yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
Welcome to Commissioner Evaluation Show. I'm John McGlynn. You can find me on X at John McGlynn75. A couple weeks in the books. I'm in a weird situation because I took so many rebuilding orphan teams this year. It's just I'm always a win now guy, and it's just tough to take all these L's on these crap dynasty teams that I'm rebuilding. It's fun to rebuild them, but it's super fun. But it's not in my wheelhouse by any means. But let's get to the good stuff. We'll talk about improving existing leagues and some commish questions. We'll breeze through some NFL news and rumors, week 2 injuries, week 3 waiver wires, and then we'll review some trades that happened in my Mighty McGlynn home leagues, and we'll evaluate a team to see if it's a fix-me-upper or tear-downer. So, JT, you know what's going on here. What's new with you? What's exciting? We are submitting our keepers in our Dynasty Hockey League. Watch Matt Canada try to platoon your Steelers offense. What else is going on last week since our last show?
It's been nothing but football, man. College football all day on Fridays and Saturdays, NFL on Thursdays, Sundays, Mondays. It's just been nonstop football, and I love it. Miss football season so much.
That's what it's all about. Andy Behrens, tell us about yourself, where everybody can find you, all the platforms you're on, all that kind of the stuff in the fantasy football world that makes people want to follow you.
Hi. First of all, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. As you were just talking, I spend my Saturdays watching the Iowa offense, and then I spend my Sundays watching the Bears offense. So I'm having a great fall so far. Thanks very much. People can find me on Twitter, or whatever we call Twitter now, at Andy Behrens. They can certainly find me all over Yahoo Fantasy. I would appreciate it if people would check out Fantasy Football Live, which is now on Thursday nights, about 75 minutes before kickoff of the Thursday game. Show's been a lot of fun this season. This is, I think, the 18th season of the show. So good times.
So you get to watch tight ends at Iowa, and that's pretty much all you do, right? Watch the tight end position.
That's pretty much it.
What's your favorite thing now in fantasy football? Rankings, podcasting, writing, etc. What do you like to do in the fantasy world that keeps you coming besides the paycheck? What else keeps you coming back to the fantasy football world?
It's always been writing for me. I mean, I enjoy, I've always enjoyed Fantasy Football Live. I've always enjoyed the video stuff, the podcast stuff, but that's just I don't know. It's fun because it's sitting around like Barstool talking, football. That's all good. But I probably take the writing more seriously than anything. When I started in the industry, all I really wanted to do was write sports columns all the time. I got started as a freelance sports writer, so it's kind of home base for me. That's what I enjoy the most.
Were you a journalism guy in college?
Started out in journalism, got into creative writing, so I sort of transitioned to English major with a creative writing focus, and tried my hardest to stay in it. Coming out of college, drifted away, then came back to it. And I was freelance writing about sports for a really long time before I dove into fantasy. Fantasy was just a great avenue to work from home and still write about sports and not have to report stories, which is a different kind of very hard work. So yeah.
That's awesome.
I've always thought of myself as a writer, though.
I do not. I had pretty good English teachers in grammar school and high school, as far as that goes, but my creative writing is not very prolific. So I like podcasting because I just think on the fly and keep going, and that's what it's all about for me. Tell me about a day away from the desk of content creation, like family, pets, music, hobbies, all the stuff you do, running, all that, the stuff you do for fun.
Well, I mean, you know how it is during football season. There's not really that much discretionary time, but I do have a daughter who is a track and cross country athlete she's at Northwestern now. She just finished up her undergrad life at WashU. So we still enjoy watching her race. It's great to have her close to home. That's really fun. So I don't know. I'm super boring during NFL season though, man. All I do is write about football and watch games.
My son is a plumber at Northwestern University, and he's at the meeting today for the new Northwestern football stadium. Actually, the
Man,
breaking ground talking meeting. So he's in. He knows all the good stuff. He's starting to get like some artifacts from the old stadium before they tear it down. We're going to the last game at the old stadium actually. So,
cool.
Some good seats. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to the Iowa Northwestern game at Wrigley.
Yeah. Sweet. You're rooting for Northwestern, right? For your daughter?
No, she's not. She's not currently a Northwestern football player. I can't do that.
Well, I know you're busy, but on Sunday, what's your favorite food to sit down and watch Red Zone on TV? Do you watch Red Zone first of all? And if so, what's your favorite food when you're watching Red Zone?
I usually have a primary game on, and then I'll have Red Zone on the laptop. I like the minute to minute of a football game more than I enjoy just I really appreciate what Scott Hansen does, and I appreciate all the live look-ins to all those games. It's cool, but you'll learn more watching a game start to finish, right?
Sure.
So I like to have like a primary game that I am just focused on, and then I've got out of the corner of my eye I can check out Red Zone. I'm not a big grazer on Sundays, but like I'll go to town on like the lunch spread for Sundays, right? So there's always guac around. There's almost always some sort of cheese-based dip. I'm a Midwesterner, so there's always cheese. But I'm not somebody who like grazes throughout the football afternoon.
Spending too much time with Pat Fitzmaurice for all that cheese in your life. That's all right. So you first of all, a couple commissioner questions here, just to kind of get your guys. JT commissioned a couple leagues. Andy, do you commission any leagues?
Oh, I've gotten out of that business. I had a couple of leagues that I commissioned for a really long time, but I can't be super responsive on Sundays, so I am the wrong person to have as a league commissioner, I think.
Well, let me get your opinion on some commissioner questions here. First of all, if you have any issues that popped up in your league, tell your commissioner right now. It's only week 2. It's easy for a commissioner to take care of these situations than to wait for it to snowball to week 8, 9, 10 playoffs and then have something fixed or change. So first of all, just talk to your commish, tell them, hey, fix this now, or I found this, or whatever you got to do. But just, help your commish out by kind of sifting through the issues that you may see. So what is a format that you would encourage everyone to try? Like Superflex, tight end premium? What's something that someone had a normal league, like, we talking normal from like the 90s all the way till, the last couple of years or even up to today. If someone want to make a jump to a more interesting league, what do you think they should add to their league?
I think, and I probably don't need to tell you that. I certainly don't need to tell you this, and I doubt that I need to tell your viewers this, but everybody should have a couple of dynasty leagues in their life, right? Because those are the things that you like. That's, those are the ones that I obsess over. And those are the ones that keep you thinking throughout the offseason and keep you attached to the NFL throughout the offseason. And it's just a different level of commitment to a team and commitment to players. And it's if you're the least bit hardcore about this, you should have, maybe not go full McGlynn where like the whole portfolio is dynasty leagues, but maybe a modified McGlynn or a half McGlynn, I would recommend. You should definitely have a few dynasty leagues in your life. The other thing, Superflex is one way to get at this, but I would strongly encourage people to change your settings at quarterback. And you can, if you want to just add a quarterback spot, that's nice and tidy and that's fine. But like the thing that I have always disliked about fantasy, at least traditional fantasy scoring, is how we don't punish things like giveaways. We don't really punish sacks in fantasy, right? So like you end up with these seasons where like the Jameis season where he threw 30 interceptions and was like the QB5, or the Blake Bortles season in which he literally led the NFL in fumbles, interceptions, and time sacked, and he finishes the QB4, right? Like that shouldn't happen. We got to get away from like just the high volume chuckers being good fantasy quarterbacks and developing scoring systems that allow the most efficient and the sort of cleanest quarterbacks to actually sit atop the year-end scoring leaders.
Yeah, mirror the field.
Andy, I was going to jump in there. Andy, you'll love this. I'm going to leave that. They highly punish that stuff. Justin Fields has 12 points this year through 2 fantasy games. He's got nothing.
As it should be.
Yeah, he's scoring nothing. Like, he's getting me nothing. I think he had a game last year where he was like had 35% completion, but he got sacked like 5 times. He had like 108 rushing yards, and I think he only scored me like 6 points or something like that, 7 points. So yeah, I'm in a couple leagues that have really gone heavy on that with the sacks and the interceptions and the turnovers, and then the completion percentages with all the dink and dunk. A lot of I'm in a leagues that they start now. If you're under 65% completion percentage, you get like knocked for it.
Yeah, I just feel like we could very easily make a sack like that should be -1, and I'm a huge advocate for like whatever award you give for touchdown passes, that should be the deduction for an interception, and a pretty severe deduction for a fumble as well. If you just do those things, and you take a look at like what scoring would look like under those circumstances, it's so much better, and you totally wipe out like the Jameis Winston season. It doesn't necessarily punish the dual threat guys are still really good because they're still piling up those rushing yards as long as they're efficient passers.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I like mirroring the field. I have a lot of scoring. I do give negative points for interceptions. Not as bad as you're saying, like, to mirror the same as touchdowns. It's 5 and 2 for touchdown interceptions, but I like giving my negative points for sacks. That's not always an offensive line problem. That's a lot of times it's a Justin Fields or somebody else sitting in the pocket too long situation. So yes, 100% agree. Is it fair in your leagues that you allow managers to drop someone who already played on Thursday or Sunday early games and to drop them and pick somebody up that has not played yet on like the 3 o'clock games, 7 o'clock games, or Monday Night Football games? You think that's fair?
Yeah. I mean, if those are the well understood rules of the game, and it's a player from your bench who you did not actually start, sure, yeah, I think it's fine.
JT, what do you think about that?
I usually lock guys once they start. I mean, like Andy said, though, if your league allows it, and people are going to play it, then I think you can do it. But I think that just needs to be something that is brought up in the league and decided beforehand. If you decide, hey, once a guy's, if a guy plays Thursday night, you can't turn, even if you didn't start him, you can't turn around and drop him on Sunday and pick up a guy. Use it. The one that really drives me crazy, and I'll throw it in real quick, is the leagues that will not let you pick up guys on Sunday mornings, like the fab leagues where you have to put in the waiver fab. I'm totally about that. But the fact that you can't run them on Sunday mornings, because that drives me nuts. Because like last second guys are out and you're short on running back and you can't pick up a guy to fill out a roster spot. That drives me nuts. I'm in like 2 leagues like that, and I'm like just harping on it every year. I was like, we've got to fix this for Sunday.
So
I guess the one allowance I'd make here is if you play in a league that has like a 10-man bench or something like that, and you've already got like this, sort of deep reserve of players that you ought to be able to sub in if you want to sub somebody in, if you have a situation that comes up in a Monday night game or Sunday night game. Maybe a rule like that is fine, but if you play like most leagues, you're going to have like a 4-man or a 6-man bench. And I think people generally prefer to have some flexibility and the ability to actually make a late substitution for a Monday game if they have to. 9
starters and a 4-man bench. It's like if I was strapped to a table and was getting beat, like it's my worst nightmare in the world to have a 12-team, 35-man leagues is like small to me. Like I couldn't imagine having 9 and 4 in my bench. So I just in dynasty, I guess I should have worded this question better. For a redraft league, when you only have small rosters like that, and maybe even like a 10-team league or something, yeah, I guess that's fine, as everybody knows. But in dynasty, when you have all those kind of roster spots, I don't see a reason why. That's like having an extra player or 2 on your team. You drafted this team for a reason, so I just don't understand how you can have it's like putting. See, now instead of 25 guys, you get 26 guys or 27 guys because you already had a guy play, and now you took him off and sub somebody in for your Monday Night Football game, and when somebody else got hurt by or whatever news came about.
John, you just need to understand that the format that you play almost exclusively is played by, that's like 0.1% of actual fantasy leagues that are out there. If probably not that, actually. Like you're like 1/100th of 1% of all fantasy leagues. The vast majority of people are playing, 9 starters, 4-man bench, 6-man bench, something like that. Redraft. Yeah.
I know
you're the fringe of the fringe.
Well, JT's the fringe of the fringe because I'm in like 23 leagues. He's in like 38, and he's in hockey and basketball and baseball and everything too. So yeah, no, I'm not. All right, enough. Do you allow out players on IR, PUP, or suspended players on IR also?
Yeah.
Suspended players you go on IR?
Oh, suspended?
Yeah.
No. That's not what a suspension is. I think if it's I didn't really listen past players who are out. No, that's different, and that should be, I don't know, that across sports, right? Like a suspension is a deliberately different thing. It is a very different thing, and an entirely different set of circumstances that led to it. So no, I don't think those guys should be allowed on IR. Like there should be pain if you want to stash a suspended guy on a bench.
Yeah. Jameson Williams this year in Dynasty is a tough stash, but it's a roster spot. But in 35-man rosters, it doesn't hurt so bad. So I get it. In the future, do you see a world where only one running back spot is needed, or just make all flex positions because of the devalued running back position?
No, I don't think we're headed that way. I feel like most leagues right now are, 2 running back, 3 receiver flex. I don't mind. I'm in one league in which we only have to start one actual wide receiver, one running back, and everything else is a flex. I do kind of feel like the NFL to some extent is headed in, and everybody's a flex sort of direction, right? So there is a little bit of that, but I don't know. I like the challenge at running back, and running back in the modern version of the NFL is still a very clearly defined position. It's still a really important position. It's the position that, is going to get the most touches on any given team throughout a season. So I don't think we're at a point where 2 starting running backs is too much to ask. And it's, that's quite a risk reward debate in any draft too, right? Because we're already seeing what injury risk does at that position. It's been this has been brutal so far, but that's every year, right? There's not even anything unusual about this. This is, I just saw somebody the other day complaining on Twitter about how they can't remember a season like this in fantasy where all these guys are hurt. What have you been playing? I remember Tom Brady getting injured in the first game of 2008. I remember, Jamal Charles getting injured in the first or second game coming off a monster. This happens all the time. This is what it is. There's more injury risk at running back. And so it's not I don't know. I like having the actual the gymnastics that you have to go through when you're choosing running back versus receiver early in a draft.
100% agreed. Absolutely. Last year was it was terrible with all the Dobbins went down, everybody else. It was across the board. It was a terrible beginning of the season last year. So the last 2 years have been really bad, actually. So I agree with that. All right. So let's jump to injuries now. So we all saw on the other day, Nick Chubb, his leg kind of broke in half. I just hope he comes back to football. That was just a terrible injury. He's already 27 years old, probably soon to be 28. A guy like that age with that kind of injury, especially since it's already happened to him before, I just hope he comes back to football. He was like the lifeline of the city of Cleveland. So good luck. We're all praying for him. Anthony Richardson concussion. That can be a couple days or a couple weeks. We'll see what happens there. Joe Burrow, right calf, maybe a couple weeks. These are tricky injuries. Also, we've seen with other players in the past with calf injuries. Aaron Rodgers missed the entire camp, and you saw what happened with his running back maybe too fast with his Achilles injury, being a part of that maybe. Saquon, right ankle sprain. They're saying it's not a low or a high ankle sprain, so it might be able to recover a little faster. We'll see what happens. David Montgomery, right thigh, a couple weeks. That's a pain tolerance issue probably. Devontae Adams concussion. Again, concussions are day-to-day, week-to-week, all depending on how bad they are. Jalen Waddle, same thing, concussion. Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's rib injury. Now, I don't know if you guys saw the play. Garrett Wilson was running downfield on that bomb from Zach Wilson. and he looked over to see the defender if he was going to get hit, and he alligator around the ball so he wouldn't have to get hit when he caught it in the ribs. And then he got hurt the next play, like say, "Oh, my ribs hurt." I think it's one of those things where he was afraid to go for the ball, and he faked an injury due to his lack of performance on the field. And I can't stand that. That stuff makes me sick. So I hope he's good. I hope this isn't really a real injury, but I feel like one of those fake injuries that guys do because they messed up on the field. Like when you fumble and all of a sudden your leg hurts, your arm hurts, because you fumbled. That's terrible. Brandon Ayuk, shoulder pain tolerance. You saw him in a lot of pain during the game. So he'll have to monitor that. OBJ ankle, it gets to be expected from a guy coming back from these injuries. He's going to get nicked up a little bit. Darnell Mooney, knee sprain, a couple weeks. DK Metcalf, ribs, came back in the game. Hopefully he'll be okay. Amon-Ra St. Brown did not practice on Wednesday with a toe situation. Toes could be funny. I mean, it could be toes could be really funny because it's a vital part of your, especially for wide receiver. Gunnar Olszewski, concussion. The only reason I'm saying Gunnar Olszewski because one of my best friends, Chris Olszewski, that's his nephew. We root for him all the time. So go Gunnar, get out of that concussion. He got hit pretty bad. It looked pretty bad. He got smoked, but hopefully he's okay. All right. Any other injuries you guys think of that I missed?
Nothing you missed, but I can tell you that the fantasy community is absolutely panicky about the Bengals right now. And
yes.
I feel like, and not without cause, right? Like seeing Joe Burrow on the sideline with like the little Theragun that you can buy at the airport, like that was weird and not great. And he was limping around and he was grimacing. And, if the quarterback goes down, it is bad for everyone in any offense. I've heard the argument before that, maybe it's good for the running back. It's never good for anybody. Like the difference between Joe Burrow and Jake Browning is profound. And that's, probably better than a touchdown per game. So we need Joe Burrow to be okay. I do think that there is a little bit of a buying opportunity on Jamar Chase right now because people who have him are mad. I'm seeing it in my Twitter feed, right? Like they're upset. He is still getting targeted. He is still Jamar Chase. He's perfectly healthy. And at some point, Joe Burrow is going to get right this year. And when he does, like Chase is going to go nuclear. So if you're in a league with an 0-2 Jamar Chase manager, I would kick the tires there on a possible trade.
In redraft leagues, he was like number 2 or 3 off the board, right?
Yeah.
That's what I figured. Yeah. All right, so let's go to this is my version of what's going on around the league. It's quick hits. So these are called quick hits. JT, just a reminder. All right, so we don't.
I'll do my best.
All right, here we go. So we'll start off now. Andy, we'll let you start off the show here. What's the excuse for Justin Fields now? We all saw the film breakdown of his garbage plays, but also wide open receivers, just the garbage play calls anyway. But we all saw the open receivers just being missed by Fields' poor vision. I mean, at what point in time is it not the offensive line? Is it not the play calling? Is it not the something else? When is it Justin Fields? When are we going to stop pointing fingers? And when is Justin Fields going to have to start pointing thumbs?
Well, listen, I can't give you a quick hit on this because this could be a podcast unto itself. And as you know, I'm a lifelong Bears fan. The Bears are just, we're back in this feedback loop that we've always known, right? Or at least since like 2006. And it's the Spider-Man meme, right? Everybody pointing at everybody else, just like today on Wednesday, you had Justin Fields in a press conference mention coaching as the thing that, is making him a little bit robotic out there and indecisive. I think there's no question that, he's clearly not progressed since his rookie year, but there were moments in his rookie year that really happened and we shouldn't try to erase, right? Like that Pittsburgh game was great. That Niners game was great. And at his best, you can see the traits that could make him a really good quarterback. And I do feel like the coaching staff has failed him. None of that means that it's not Justin Fields' fault when you have, multiple plays where receivers are downfield, either clapping or waving their hands, like knowing that they are ridiculously, ludicrously Big 12 level open. That almost never happens in the NFL, and you got to hit all those throws. So this is a long way of saying that everything is bad, not just Fields. I certainly feel that if Justin Fields had landed with a different coaching staff,
49ers,
we would be seeing very different results right now. Like, you just look at what the Colts are doing for Anthony Richardson, like leaning into what he does well and de-emphasizing the things that are probably not going to be strengths of his anytime soon. Like, man, they've come out giving him like all kinds of really relatively simple layup throws, short throws to dynamic receivers. They lean into his rushing ability. Like, they're setting him up for success in ways that the Bears are not setting up Justin Fields for success. And again, Justin Fields isn't doing anything with some glaring, like, sirens wailing sort of opportunities that he has that don't come around very often in the NFL. I mean, shoot, they probably left 21 points on the table against Tampa.
Yeah, I'm wondering when DJ Moore is going to have some his breakdown moment and just go nuts in the locker room, because he was visually pissed during that game. Yeah, you could see that.
Mm-hmm.
JT, Bengals, is this a playoff team if Joe Burrow can't move?
Absolutely not. I was already worried about this team just because the schedule is so much tougher this year. I already had them at like 10, 11 wins with a healthy Burrow, just because I thought the schedule was really tough and a really tough division. With no Burrow, this team is in trouble.
Big trouble. Andy, are you starting Dalton Kincaid or Dawson Knox on a weekly basis in Buffalo?
Hell no, I'm starting Sam Laporta. I didn't draft those guys. It's not my problem.
Good answer.
Like, if you made me choose one, I guess I would go Kincaid, but it's close.
Kincaid's probably going to get the volume, but Dawson Knox is touchdown dependent, the red zone guy. So it's a 50-50 on that one. People went nuts over Kincaid, top in Dynasty. He was a top probably 7 or 8 pick. So it may be a couple. When Dawson Knox just signed a 3-year contract that like the first 2 years are pretty much guaranteed. So he's not going anywhere for a while anyway. And Dynasty's like a 2.5 year window kind of vision. So JT, Broncos, what is Marvin Mims' floor and ceiling?
Man, I love Marvin Mims. He was one of my guys I really liked coming into the draft. When the Broncos took him, I was a little worried that it was just going to be a really crowded wide receiver room. He's starting to separate himself a little bit there. So I'm liking Marvin Mims. He was getting picked up everywhere in my redraft leagues if people didn't have him. I tried to grab him in a lot of spots in Dynasty. He didn't get to me in a lot of spots, but I like Marvin Mims a lot. I think he's got a really high floor, especially if the injuries keep happening to other guys. I can see him eventually being the number 1 wide receiver in Denver.
I think Judy hurts him the most, but I mean, Sutton is kind of Sutton looks like, I don't know what he looks like out there. He's not very good right now, and Judy was his biggest threat. But yeah, Judy being hurt opens this opportunity for Marvin Mims. I have him in all but 2 of my dynasty leagues, so I'm super happy that Mims is panning out, which we all knew was going to happen. But Andy, Browns, how much will Kareem Hunt hurt Jerome Ford's value?
Like minimally to not at all. I'm not super worried about Kareem Hunt because that team already moved on from Kareem Hunt. They only pivoted back to him out of absolute necessity. Like, this is just in case of emergency break glass situation. I think Ford is good. I think Ford is pretty legit. He on his best day, he can't do an impression of like even a bad version of Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb is like an all-time great running back. So I wouldn't put that on Ford, but I mean, I think the coaching staff has made pretty clear that Jerome Ford is going to be their guy moving forward.
Yeah, Ford's fast, but he doesn't have the same between the tackles, and he dropped a couple passes, or he dropped at least one pass that was right in his hands. That's probably why they signed Kareem Hunt, because they don't trust his receiving values. JT, Buccaneers, can Baker Mayfield win the NFC South?
I think anybody can win the NFC South. I think it's up for grabs. I mean, the Saints defense, I think right now is putting them just slightly ahead. I don't totally trust their offense. Derek Carr has looked okay so far, not great. Baker's looked as good as Derek Carr. He's looked better than Bryce Young so far. So if the defense for the Bucs can hold up, the schedule, is pretty easy. So I think they definitely could win that division.
That's what I think. Go Baker to touchdown makers, making it happen over there. Andy, Cardinals. Are the rumors of the Cardinals starting 0-6 purposely sitting Kyler Murray to avoid injury and money and moving on to another quarterback are going to come to fruition, like Caleb Williams, Drake May, Shedeur Sanders kind of thing?
Well, I don't think it's crazy to think that they might want to move on from Kyler, which is wild because they did just pay him. But they, even in the process of paying him, didn't seem entirely happy with him. They probably ought to shop him to the Jets if we think he's going to be good to go by midseason. I mean, they need a pretty full reboot, I would say. So this is definitely in play.
Yeah, they saved like $69 million by not playing him this year. So that's it's in their best interest by not playing him. So good for them. JT, Chargers. Can Justin Herbert carry this team without a dump-off option like Eckler to bail him out?
Yeah, I love Herbert. I think I was preseason, I was like, take every over Herbert bet. I think he's going to throw for a ton of yards. I think I got on a bet for him to lead the league in passing yards. I think he's going to throw a ton. Obviously, having someone like Eckler to drop it off to is, just makes life a lot easier. But if Eckler can't play for a while, I think Josh Kelly has looked pretty good. I just think this team's still going to be the mix. The defense is getting better every week, even though they've not looked like it statistically because they played some really tough teams so far. But I still think the Chargers are in the mix. I like Herbert a lot. I think he can carry this team.
Yeah, good. It's one thing to win and have a lot of fantasy points. Another thing to win football games. So just having Eckler healthy is vital to this team right now. Andy, the Chiefs, 11 players caught passes from Patrick Mahomes last week. Is this the new Chiefs offense and is just going to kill everybody's fantasy value?
Everybody but the guys that you actually drafted early. Like, I don't know. Everybody else was just a flyer, right? Like, I think Kelsey's still great. Kelsey is still like a tier of his own player at the position. Mahomes proved last year that he doesn't need a particularly dynamic wide receiver in order to, still be the overall QB1 and still deliver 5,000 passing yards. So I don't think it kills everybody. I don't think there's any receiver there that people should be super excited about. The thing that is actually a little bit disappointing. You look at the start that Baker, the touchdown maker. You look at the start that the Bucs are off to. They're probably not going to be sellers. Like that would have been great if we could relocate a Mike Evans to Kansas City, but that ain't happening if Tampa is in the driver's seat for the division. So I don't see the easy fix for it. But again, they got it done last year with like Juju as their number one wide receiver. So I think they can be perfectly successful and still give us, the number one overall tight end and number one overall quarterback.
Agreed. This whole offense runs through the quarterback. Sure. JT, I gave you a Colts question for a change. Okay. So you can be happy. All right. Should the team have started off with Minshew at quarterback and eased Richardson into barking out the signals, or they did the right thing by starting him off at quarterback from week one?
Originally, I started off the year thinking, hey, we should play Minshew. Coach should play Minshew mania. Indy's going to go nuts for it. They'll love him. And then eventually AR learn the system. He'll get in there. That was my original thoughts. After seeing what they've done, this coaching staff, how they've handled Anthony Richardson, I think they absolutely made the right move. Richardson's looked really good. They put him in good situations. Even though the Colts are 1-1, they easily could be 2-0. And if Jonathan Taylor played in both those games, I think they win. I think they handily beat the Jags if Jonathan Taylor plays in that game. So I think it was the right move. I think Minshew's going to keep him in it. I said from the beginning of the year, the way this schedule lines up for them, Minshew's good enough to win 9 or 10 games with this team if the defense shows up. Now, that was with Jonathan Taylor, so I hope they can hang on. Jonathan Taylor comes back healthy and actually can play. But I like Minshew. I've said it all along. I felt like all offseason last year, I was like, the Colts need to sign Gardner Minshew. I thought it was a great signing when they signed him. I think he just does just enough to keep this team in it. Hopefully, AR is good. There was a really weird injury. I'm going to go into it real quick. He scored the touchdown. I saw a really nice breakdown on X from someone where he pulled up going into the end zone and kind of didn't see the safety coming out of the corner of his eye. And he kind of pulled up going into the end zone for the touchdown, and the safety just clocked him. It's like he didn't see him. So I think that was part of the injury where I think if he would have saw him, he lowers the shoulder and just lays that safety out and just stands up in the end zone. He just didn't see it, which I think made the fall worse because he wasn't prepared for it. And then he actually came back, played a series, and then all of a sudden went to the sideline and said, hey, something's a little off. And they went and checked him, and they said, hey, let's be careful with him. They ended up sitting him in the second half. So hopefully, because he kind of self-reported the symptoms and went over there, hopefully it's not anything too crazy. But you saw him take a jarring hit to the side of the helmet, hit him in the ear hole, and then the back of his head hit the ground. So hopefully it's all right. But I'm sorry, you knew I was going to go off on tangent on the Colts. But I do think the Colts – I think they can stick in it with Minshew. Like I said, they have some tough games, but they have a very winnable schedule. And I think Minshew has enough experience, especially if they can get JT back healthy. They have enough experience that he can keep it rolling if he has to play multiple weeks for AR. I don't think that's going to be the case. Hopefully, it's just a minor concussion. He's back right away. But I love what the Colts are doing so far with AR. I just, as a 1-1 team, I can't be more excited about what they've done so far. I feel like this team's on the way up.
Yeah, I thought Richardson kind of expected the courtesy of just walking in zone, and now he's in the NFL. You better learn everything's these guys are playing for money. They don't want you to get in the
he
end
won't
zone,
do that again. He will he'll not pull up again.
Andy, Cowboys. What's the chances that Jalen Tolbert takes away Brandon Cook's job as the number 2 wide receiver soon?
Oh, what a gross question. This feels like wish casting by someone who maybe has Tolbert on a dynasty roster or something. Just guessing there. What are the chances that the Cowboys number 2 receiver matters for most fantasy leagues like that? I don't know. That's looking pretty low to me. That seems like a CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard offense, and we don't really need to think about anybody else. They've given Jake Ferguson some chances, and I don't know. It's fine. He's fine. This could happen, but I'd still Brandon Cooks is back at practice, like full practice today, from what I understand. So I doubt it.
You nailed the wish casting comment. That's exactly what it is. So I got to throw a couple of these in once in a while. JT's gonna get a couple too, also. So all right, JT Dolphins after a huge week 1 passing game, then a big week 2 in the run. Is Mike McDaniel the best coach in the NFL right now?
Man, I tell you what, I don't know if he's the best coach. I love him, though. I love what he does. It's so refreshing to see a coach change things up, adjust to the game plan, see what teams are giving him, and take it. It's like some of these coaches, I swear, it's like they want to smash their head in the mirror all the time. It's like they're like, no, I got to do what I got to do. And it's like they don't want to make an adjust. They're so hard-headed that they got to be right. And that is the thing that drives me insane about coaches, especially football coaches, when they have to be right and they have to be the smartest guy in the room. Well, the smartest guy in the room is not telling you he's the smartest guy. He's just winning. And I think that's what Mike McDaniel's doing. I think he is the smartest guy, but he's not trying to prove it by telling you I'll do exactly what I want to do. He's being smart by taking what you're giving him. I love the way he coaches. I think this Dolphins team is super fun to watch. Obviously, the running game hurt me with all my Tua shares and all my Waddle, all my Tyreek Hill last week. I missed a parlay on Hill not going over on his yards, but I really like this Dolphins offense. I just think they're fun to watch, and I like everything that Mike McDaniel's doing.
180 degrees from like Mike Martz or some of the other guys who are too proud of themselves to exactly. Andy, Eagles, is this a full-blown committee now with Swift, Gainwell, and Hurts?
Is it a full-blown committee? It's the nice thing is if it is a committee, it's like a 2-man committee, right? Hurts is really the killer for these guys because he's going to continue to take a bunch of goal line work, and he should have it. It's utterly unstoppable when they get in short yardage situations. I do think there were, I don't want to call anybody out, but I do think that there were some people like in the fantasy world who got a little bit out over their skis with DeAndre Swift's game in week 2. I think he's a very good player. I don't think he's some transcendent generational talent. And there have always been people in the fantasy world who talk about him that way. I thought he had a great game. I thought almost all of those yards were before contact, and which is, some of that's on him. Some of that is his own ability to avoid contact. He's also a guy who, like, his entire career, it's generally the first guy who touches him who gets the tackle, right? Like he's not a tackle breaker exactly. So I don't see Swift as somebody who completely runs away with a job and settles into 20 plus touches each week. So yeah, I think it's a 2-man committee, and it'll swing back and forth who's getting the 60% versus the 40%. And then I think they both get kneecapped by Hurts near the goal line.
Yeah, with Eagles, with a great offensive line, first of all, then running the wedge to almost perfection on every short yardage distance. And then also, I went nuts when Kenny Gainwell had a week 1. I love Kenny Gainwell, so that's my guy. And then Swift, he got hurt, and then Swift came and got the opportunity. Now I'm like, it's going to be 50-50 now because they got a taste of somebody else. But I think Gainwell's a little bit too small to be the all touch guy anyway. So both these guys are kind of a little bit injury prone, Swift and Gainwell. So them splitting the carries doesn't really bother me too much. Hurts is a prolific runner. He's getting better on learning how to avoid contact. So, minus the wedge, which is protected by his offensive lineman, just falling forward on top of him, getting 1 yard. So we'll see what happens there. JT, Falcons, if this team keeps winning, why pass?
Well, you just gave me the Mike McDaniel question. Now I've got Arthur Smith. I mean, he is the king of I'm going to do exactly what I want to do, and I don't care if it works or not, but this is just what I'm going to do. And it works when they're in close games and they can run the ball. The problem is when they get down, what are they going to do? That's where things are going to be iffy. When they get some games where they get behind early 14-0 and he wants to run every play anyway, I think it's going to be a problem. Now, run the ball. I love it. I love the fact that they're committed to it. But at some point, I think Ritter in the passing game is going to get exposed for them. The fact that they're just not willing to put enough into it. But if you're a Bijan owner, this was my favorite landing spot for him pre-draft.
Yes.
I said, if Bijan goes to the Falcons, I am going to love it. And everyone else should love it too, because he's going to get 1 million touches because they don't care. So as far as fantasy-wise, I absolutely love it. For NFL-wise, great start, getting the wins. I don't know how long they can keep this up if they get behind. If they can play tough defense and keep every game close, there is no reason for them to throw the ball all over the place.
Yeah, Andy, speaking of foot on the gas, I know it was a tight game, but are the 49ers going to keep the foot on the gas on Christian McCaffrey all year round? This whole year?
This is wild, and it's a great question. And I think we're going to begin to get some answers to this on Thursday. Simply put, they can't do it. He played 100% of the offensive snaps in week 2. He'd played 85% in week 1. This is Carolina usage, right? Like, the plan should not be for Christian McCaffrey to get 400 touches. They should just try to get Christian McCaffrey to December and January healthy. I would have assumed coming into this season, it would look a lot like last year when both Mitchell and McCaffrey were healthy. McCaffrey was averaging something like 15.5 touches per game, and Mitchell was getting 11. I think it's in their best interest to get back to that. That's maybe not the answer that you want to hear if you're invested in McCaffrey in fantasy, but they got to keep him healthy, because he is a matchup tilting difference maker when we get to the most important weeks of the season. And they can't keep doing this, I guess is my answer. They absolutely cannot.
Especially when they're winning, in week 1, I don't understand how they keep giving him the ball when they don't need to. They have to shuffle this stuff around. McCaffrey's great, but why would you wear him out there? It is week, like you said, it's week 2.
Wild.
It's a long season. You got to give him some chances here. JT, Giants, are you taking a loss on Barkley now and calling it a day if you were in a redraft league or a dynasty league anyway? Because it seems to be repetitive. It's lather, rinse, repeat with these injuries coming on. And you know what's going to happen is when he comes back, his ankle might not be 100% until week 8, 9, 10, 11. You never know. And you're getting half of Saquon Barkley. Are you trading right now for draft picks and just calling it a day if you're in like a 50-50 team?
Yeah, if I'm 50-50 and I think I'm in trouble and somebody's willing to give me some value, I can see making the deal. Now, the issue for me is anybody going to give you the value you need to move him currently? I don't know. Hopefully, if he comes back, gives you 1 or 2 good weeks, then you move him. At that point, somebody gets a little more confidence in him that he doesn't get re-hurt. But it's just a tough situation there. I've got Barkley in a decent amount of spots. I'm probably just holding out and hoping he comes back. And that when he does, he is fairly healthy, because the Giants are going to need him if they're going to be decent at all this year.
Yes or no? Probably what looks like a mid first and 2 mid seconds next year for Barkley. Would you take that right now or no?
Yeah, I would take that.
Yeah, 100%. Andy, Jaguars, is the sunshine for MVP talk? Is the sunshine for MVP talk shelved with this performance last week?
No, I don't think it's shelved. He didn't even look bad, right? Like they had like 4 or 5, college touchdowns where receivers got like 1 foot down in the end zone.
Right.
Like it wasn't that bad. Ridley looks fantastic to me. The ball comes out at Lawrence's hand. Like, it's a little bit different from most guys. So he was always a dark horse MVP candidate, but I think he's going to have additional games where we're still making those noises, where we're still talking about it. I think that kid is really good.
Number 1 fan right here. So yes, I was hoping you'd say yes. Good job. Good job. JT, Zach Wilson is showing flashes, but can flashes get this team to the playoffs in the AFC East?
That's the problem with the AFC East. What you said, if you take this Jets team and you put them on the NFC South, this team with Zach Wilson wins that division. I mean, with that defense, he doesn't have to be that great. He's just as good as the quarterbacks in that division. I think they roll. The biggest issue is this Jets. It's week after week after week. This defense is going to have to hold up all season. Now, can they win with Zach Wilson? I think they can win some games. But again, a brutal schedule for the Jets this year. It's going to be tough. I was hoping to get a year Aaron Rodgers just to get that Zach Wilson development. But, hey, we're going to see what he's got this year. He's got another year to another chance to show it. I was laughing about Zach Wilson. My girlfriend was like, how old is that guy when they showed him on the sideline? Because she's like, man, he looks like he's like 16. I'm like, I know. And then I told her the MILF Hunter story, and she was like, what is happening? She was like, she couldn't believe it. So just my little side bit on the Jets and Zach Wilson.
Andy, Lions, rank these priorities. Lions get Goff an extension to keep him around for a while, or get Gibbs more the ball more in this running game?
Well, I mean, if you think you have a quarterback who like can make a deep playoff run, like that is the priority, right? I think that is what they should do. I like this Gibbs thing is going to be an ongoing fantasy story, but I don't think it's particularly important to the Lions. Like once David Montgomery comes back, I think they made it pretty clear in week 1 that Gibbs is going to have a rotational role. But this is a problem because he wasn't the third down guy. He wasn't the obvious passing down guy. He certainly doesn't have the goal line role. Like there's no role that he's really latched onto that is going to, deliver real profits for fantasy managers. Certainly not if you took him in like the 3rd or 4th round. So he's a bit of a worry for me. I think he looks great. But I'm not coaching the Lions, so it doesn't matter if I think he looks great, right? I think he's going to be a problem.
Yeah, he looks good on his opportunities. JT, Packers. Jaden Reed is the best wide receiver on his team, even when Watson comes back. True or false?
I think it's true. I think he has definitely – I took him everywhere I could get him because I think he can end up being really their number one wide receiver. I just think that guy that Jordan Love can be like really consistently look for when he needs them. I think Watson's going to be their big play guy. He's the home run hitter. We've seen that already out of him. But I think Jaden Reed is the consistent guy. I think he's the guy that you're going to see Love attach onto when he needs big plays and he needs a big catch. I think Jaden Reed's going to end up being that guy.
Andy, Panthers. Is Jonathan Mingo the best offensive player on this team?
Oh, gross. I mean, it's just not a team that's loaded with talent at the skill spots. I guess it's possible, but I'm not the biggest Mingo guy. Matt Harmon liked him coming out of college reasonably well, which I put a lot of faith in him because he's done more film work on Jonathan Mingo certainly than I have. He might be, but that's an indictment of the team. That's not a ringing endorsement of Mingo.
100%. JT, Patriots. Is Mac Jones better in fantasy than we have him ranked?
So far, he has absolutely been way better in fantasy than everyone thought. My question is, how long is Belichick going to let him keep throwing the ball around? They're letting him throw the ball everywhere. If he keeps this up the whole season, we're all way too low on him. I mean, way too low. But he's been so far fairly impressive. I mean, I've gone through some of my rankings. I'm looking at where his stats are compared to some of my starting quarterbacks, and I'm like, kind of wish I had Mac Jones right now.
You get coaches that can become chameleons. Yeah, that's exactly playing to your strengths and weaknesses. I'm pretty impressed with what the Patriots have done this year. So, yeah, 100% agree. Andy, Raiders, what will it take to get Josh Jacobs going? New contract, new team, new play calling? What's going on here? -2 yards on 90 players is not going to cut the mustard.
It's probably just going to take a friendly matchup at some point. I think Josh Jacobs is great, by the way. I'm not someone who thought that last year was like fluky or totally unpredictable or anything like that. Like Josh Jacobs has been among the missed tackle leaders from the moment he entered the league. I think he's a really, really good player. He's not like a 4.3, 4.4 guy, right? He's not like the breakaway speed guy, but he makes so many guys miss. I think he's really fun to watch. I think that's like a just crumple it up and throw it out kind of game because he still caught 5 balls. Like he's still active as a receiver. I think he's going to be just fine. And if there's, if the Josh Jacobs manager in your league is uptight, I would make a play for him.
You are 1,000% correct on that. Yes, Josh Jacobs is awesome. JT, Rams. Many wrote the Rams off as dead in the water this year. When Cooper Kupp comes back, are they a real contender in the NFC West?
I tell you what, I was one of those people. I
So
thought
was I.
I looked at that 6.5 wins. I was like, I'm hammering the under. I'm like, this team is going to be terrible. This defense has been way better than I thought they would be. I mean, I looked at coming the season. I was like, this is the worst secondary in the league, possibly. I can't believe what they're doing. They look better all around. I mean, if they can get Cooper Kupp back and keep Puka going the way he's going, and then Kyron Williams, I've always been an Akers hater. I traded him everywhere I had him for anything I could get the last 2 years. Kyron Williams plays solid. I mean, Stafford looks like old Lions slinging the ball around Matt Stafford. I mean, everybody was saying this guy should retire. He's dead. And like he looks good so far. My Rams under bet is scary right now, not looking great. But I'm actually impressed with them. I've got a lot of Stafford, and I'm here for it. I can't wait till Kupp comes back, hopefully healthy, and they just keep slinging it.
Of course.
Hey, if I can jump in on that, I know everybody's been talking about like Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua. I think the story there is how damn good Stafford looks. Like Stafford is slinging it in vintage Stafford way, and I think we're going to look back on this. I don't know. It might be one of the main storylines of the season. Like one of the big things that we all just maybe you guys didn't miss it, but like I feel like I whiffed on is I did not pay enough attention to stories from Rams camp about how Stafford had a really good offseason and the elbow's good. And he's fun because he looks like young Matthew Stafford right now.
He looks really good. And we all knew Kyron Williams was going to be good. He went to Notre Dame. Of course he's going to be good. Come on. Andy, is Nelson Aguilar back in the wide receiver one conversation?
No, he's most certainly not. Nice game for Nelson Aguilar. I suppose like we could feel okay about that. It is I think your takeaway from the Nelson Aguilar game is that Rashad Bateman is not close to being a fantasy factor right now. Right. I think Zay Flowers is going to be great all year. I think Mark Andrews is obviously, if he's not the number one receiver on that team, he's like 1A. I think those guys are going to be fine. But like Nelson Aguilar stepping up during like when Odell went down, that's not a great sign for Rashad.
Yeah, it's 100%. Zay Jones, Zay Flowers, I really, really liked him. When we went to the Ravens, I was like, oh, man, just tanked his value getting drafted by the Ravens. But, we'll see what happens with him. He's a really good receiver, super talented. I like his long-term investment future anyway. So we'll see. He can make that team a lot better when they finally get him going. JT, Saints, why the hell is Taysom Hill still part of this Sean Payton offensive system when he's not even here?
I feel like we're going to look back in 20 years and be like, remember Taysom Hill? What were the Saints doing? Like, it's just going to be like, you're going to watch these random Taysom Hill highlights and be like, I still don't understand 20 years later what they were doing with him. It blows my mind. It makes no sense to me. I read all these articles where they had to designate him as a QB in the offseason. I still see people play him at tight end. I don't understand what's going on there. Somehow they can get Taysom Hill in the game, but not Jameis Winston. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't get it. Andy, in case you didn't know, Jameis Winston's my favorite player in the league, so that's I'm waiting for him to get his opportunity. If they don't like Carr, put Jameis Winston in there and get this thing done. Or trade Jameis Winston to the Jets and let him light that team on fire.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I couldn't believe that wasn't the Jets question. Was shouldn't they trade for Jameis Winston immediately? I figured that was going to be your Jets question 100%. So I was
even if it always is, I had to change the pace a little bit, JT. I had to get off the but even if a team like the Jets with such a good defense could overcome Jameis Winston's the turnover machine symptoms, but he would still throw for 40 touchdowns in 4,500 yards at this point and get this team an offense with a fantastic defense. I just don't get it. But all right, rant over. Andy, Seahawks, why are they peppering the tight ends when you have so many good players on this team? Like 25% of the targets went to Cody Parkinson and Will Dissly. What is the story with that?
Well, first of all, they have an Iowa tight end, so they should throw to him. There's that. Some of that was just the nature of that game, and it became more of a shootout than I think we necessarily expected. Dissly's a good player. They like him. There wasn't anything terribly off with this. Obviously, Tyler Lockett is still getting his. Metcalf is still going to get his. So it's a little bit of an annoyance, but I don't think it's really going to be an ongoing problem that prevents Metcalf and Lockett certainly from having fantasy value.
Yes. All right, JT, 20 seconds. Steelers, ready? We can rant. Ready? Go.
All right, Steelers defense, absolutely phenomenal performance. I said coming into the year, I think this team is a top 5 defense, if not top 3. They absolutely proved it. I've loved Kenny Pickett. I've backed him. I'm starting to get really nervous. Really, really, really nervous. George Pickens to the moon. I told you.
All right, you got it. Good job. Fantastic. All right, Andy. Texans, is Nico Collins about to break out, or was this just a Colts defensive breakdown day?
No, Nico Collins is a really good player. He was, end of the season last year, he was, or at least in his final games last year, he was giving us 9-10 targets. Like they're looking his way. He's kind of fundamentally different from other Texans receivers. He's got size. He's got clear contested catch ability. I think Nico Collins is going to be a really nice story. And the revelation there is that they're just letting CJ Stroud chuck it, and he looks good, right? Like 47 pass attempts in week 2 from your rookie quarterback. That was awesome. Also, Tank Dell, pretty sweet. That was a great game too. That kid's going to be good.
Not sure why he didn't go number 1 in the draft. I was kind of wondering what the Panthers were doing, but it is what it is. JT, Titans, is Tajay Spears good enough to supplant Derrick Henry right now?
If I got Derrick Henry, I want Tajay Spears bad, because I think that Spears is going to cut into his load. And if something happens where he gets hurt or he ends up getting traded for some reason with all these injuries, if the Titans end up kind of falling apart, I think Tajay Spears, I was totally out on him pre-draft. I was totally wrong. He looks really good. I don't know how many years you're getting out of him, but man, in redraft, 100% grabbing him. In Dynasty, if I can get 2-3 years out of him, he's looked really, really solid so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy, Vikings, will Alexander Madison finish the season as the team's RB1?
I think he probably will, but it's not going to be a satisfying fantasy season necessarily, right? Like he can be a huge disappointment for fantasy purposes relative to what you may have expected, and still end up as the Vikings, kind of sort of RB1. The Vikings, by the way, have they'd better beat the Chargers this week, like that. And of course, the Chargers 0-2 better beat the Vikings this week, because things get really rough in a hurry for Minnesota, because they've got they won all those games last year. They got this first place schedule. They got the Chiefs coming up. They got the Niners coming up, and you just look at their schedule, and there is a very clear path to a 1-6 start. Heading into the trade deadline. And if that's the case, now we're talking, it's going to be buzz everywhere about Cousins to the Jets. And, how do we break this up exactly? So Vikings are really headed for a mess if they don't get this win this weekend.
Yeah. Cousins can only do so much. I mean, he just threw for 360 and 4 touchdowns.
He's got 700 plus passing yards on the season. He's been great. He's been absolutely great, and it hasn't mattered.
Why can't he win the big game? Why he can only do so much? It's like Michael Jordan scoring 85 points and then them still losing the game. It is what it is. I ask this question all the time to JT, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit and give it to you, Andy. Why does Chico hate Antonio Gibson so much?
Yeah, it was over for Gibson when he fumbled in week 1, I think, right? They just buried him. I was pretty optimistic about him coming into the season. We thought preseason usage can be such a liar. And it was in this case. He's not part of that rotation. Brian Robinson looks like he was the clear right answer there. The fumble may have clinched it. I really thought that Eric Bieniemy would want to sort of lean into the skill set that Gibson has, and it just hasn't been terribly necessary. So that's just a miss. I don't know. Anywhere I had him, I dropped him after week 1. I don't think he's going to make me regret it.
I still have faith. He's not going anywhere on most of my teams unless I'm completely rebuilding. I traded him away in one league, but everywhere else, I just picked him up in our league, the Yahoo league this morning. So somebody else dropped him. I
would love to see the Commanders trade him.
Yes.
But I think that's what it might take.
That would be great. Exactly right. All right, that's our news and notes for the news and rumors for the week. We got waiver wires here. Be careful about overreacting to week 1 performances, week 2 performances, that kind of stuff, because don't ignore what you drafted for a reason. You drafted the guys. Things change a little bit, but at the same time, trust the process. Have faith in the guys you drafted, minus injuries, stuff like that. Go with your gut. So quarterback, Russell Wilson, Broncos country, let's ride. Gardner Minshew, Colts, Baker Mayfield, Baker a touchdown maker. Matthew Stafford, of course. Everybody's, I'm sure, picking him up right now, but these are more redraft stuff. Most super flex and 2 quarterback dynasty leagues. Guys like these are already gone, but running back, Jerome. Any other quarterbacks, first of all, you guys can think of that you might want to add to this list?
Yeah, Sam Howell.
Sam Howell, very good.
I think Sam Howell looked really good this week, and we know he's got rushing upside too.
That pass to McLaurin, did you see that window of it? Was like a postage stamp. He got into 50 yards downfield, and the postage stamp right over the defenders, right past the safety. It was great. It was a really good pass. Running backs, Jerome Ford, then Kareem Hunt for the Browns, Rashawn Johnson for the Bears. I love Rashawn Johnson. I think he's going to be the RB1 sooner than later in Chicago. Sean Tucker for the Bucks, Gus Bus and Justice Hill, Kendra Miller from the Saints, Matt Breida, and Eric Gray from the Giants. But that's just possibly just a time filler for the next couple of weeks. But any other running backs that you could think of?
I'm interested to see if Andy thinks that Breida is the guy without Barkley, or if they go with Gray. I like Gray. I've got Gray all over the place.
Yeah.
But is it too early for the rookie to get in there, or do you think they kind of lean on the savvy vet and Breida, who I don't think, even if he starts, as much of a fantasy option?
I mean, Breida's a good athlete, and he's been a very good running back in the league. I can't imagine that they would really roll out Gray against the Niners defense and think that's going to amount to anything. So I think it's probably Breida here, but I do think it's going to be more of I think you're right to include multiple Giants in this, because I don't think they're going to use any one guy the way they would have used Barkley.
No, they're going to have to game plan around the 49ers. Awesome offense, awesome defense for sure. Wide receiver, Marvin Mims, Broncos, of course. Jaden Reed, of course, 2 of my most stashed rookies this year. Josh Reynolds from the Lions in case of an injury. To Amon-Ra. Tutu Atwell, Rams. Tank Dell, Texans. Marvin Mims, Broncos. Jaden Reed, Packers.
You like Mims and Reed so much you put him on this list twice.
Put him on it twice. He's like doubling down, taking both. One guy I will mention real quick is Josh Reynolds. I actually think Josh Reynolds has been really solid as the number 2 receiver there for the Lions. I had him on a couple really deep leagues that are like 14, 16 team leagues where I've been kind of playing him in like a flex spot, doing stuff. I moved him up into my starting 3 wide receivers in quite a few leagues. He is putting up numbers, and it feels like he is the clear-cut number 2 behind Amon-Ra St. Brown right now for the Lions. Goff likes him, and he's looked good.
Yeah. Tight end, Luke Musgrave, Packers. Jake Ferguson, Cowboys. Zach Ertz, Cardinals. Zach Ertz is I wish he would just
I did not see this coming.
I wish he would just let my Trey McKitty shares happen, but it is what it is. Durham Smythe, Dolphins. So that's any other tight ends you can think of, because there's a lot of tight ends is a tough position. Everybody good. It's a wishy-washy. You guys have a good week, and then I'm really surprised with Durham Smythe situation, because of Mike Gesicki just got completely ignored in this offense last year, where it funneled through 2 wide receivers and the running game, and now all of a sudden Durham Smythe's getting 6 and 8 targets a game. It's like, what the hell? Why couldn't you do this?
I think this is because Durham Smythe's more of, he's not, I'm going to say this and people are going to be like, what are you talking about? But Gesicki is an outline guy who didn't block. McDaniel didn't like because he didn't block. I mean, he's way more of a Kittle type of, he obviously doesn't have the skill set that George Kittle has, but for the Niners, he's much more that blocking, full all-around tight end. And that's why I think that they like Durham Smythe, and I think that's why they wanted him instead of Gesicki, because he is that guy that can block and do a little bit of everything. And my sneaky pickup, especially if you're in start 2 tight end leagues, or if you're in those leagues that have really high tight end premiums where you can start 2, 3, 4 tight ends, I really like Kylan Granson for the Colts. Even when Jelani Woods comes back, I think Jelani Woods comes back and moves Mo Alley Cox completely out of the way. I think Kylan Granson's here to stay for the Colts. As long as he's healthy, I think they're going to use him. I think they like him a lot. He's in year 3 there. I think he's a sneaky play. He had a touchdown last week, especially with Minshew. He's a guy I'm picking up in all those types of leagues.
Picked him up in the fishbowl last week and started him. Yeah.
I'll tell you a guy that I think, and you guys know this, it doesn't take much more than 550 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns to finish as a tight end 1, right? So that's kind of it's kind of a throwaway thing for me to say, oh, I think he can be a top 8, top 10 fantasy tight end. because we're not asking that much. I think that Cade Otton can sneak into that. He got quite a bit of usage in that Bears game. He was kind of quietly the most productive tight end among the rookie class last year. I think that guy's just a really good player. I don't think it's going to be a flashy year, and I'm not saying that he's going to finish with like 800 yards and 8 TDs or something like that, but just one of those guys who can sneak into tight end 1 numbers by the end of the year.
Yeah, if you can get like anywhere from
everywhere in Dynasty.
Yeah, Cade Otton's. If you can get like anywhere from like 8 to 14 points from your tight end on a weekly basis, that's all you can ask for. That's absolutely. So 100%. That's a good one. And Durham Smythe is a chipper. I mean, that's what he is, a guy that can block and release. Gesicki never did that because he played out wide. He almost had to play slot receiver because he couldn't be counted on. Durham Smythe can block for a half second and then release and get dump off passes when they can see the safeties cheating on Hill and Waddle. So that's I get it, but I just didn't understand how when you have somebody wide open like Gesicki, when they play zone defense, when he takes his 5 steps and turns to the center of the field right between both linebackers, why you couldn't make that happen. But I thought that was a Tua problem. But again, Tua looked really good this year compared to last year in week 1 anyway. So, all right. That's waiver wire. And anything else I missed in the waiver wire? We're getting real short on time here, and I got one more segment.
I'll give you one, and they're probably gone by now. But in Yahoo leagues, entering this week, Kansas City's defense was only like 39% rostered, and they got the Bears coming up, and you're going to get the Bears you're going to turn them into a one-dimensional offense. Kansas City is going to be the number 1 D in fantasy this week.
This is supposed to be a road trip for a lot of people to go see the Bears in Kansas City. It's kind of like, man, I'm so glad I didn't waste my money and time going to this game. Now they're going to get smoked.
It's like a funeral march, yeah.
Yeah. I got screwed out of going to the draft. JT, I went to like 7 of the last 8 drafts, I think, or whatever. The ones that were actually, again, JT got to go to Kansas City this year, and I couldn't go because something got planned, and I'm like, son of a. But it is what it is.
And you were missed, John. You were missed.
I'll be there next year. Me and you will be there somewhere next year.
Kansas City almost by myself. It was sad, but I had a good time.
All right, so here's some trades that happened in the Mighty McGlynn Dynasty Leagues. These are all my home leagues that I run. So just real fast, you guys tell me which side you want. This is kind of in a vacuum. I know you don't see the whole team and stuff, but these are in the Dynasty lens. Calvin Ridley for Dalton Kincaid and a 2nd-round pick.
I'll say that I think it's fair, but I would want Calvin Ridley. I think he looks awesome. I think you're going to get 2-3 really good years out of him.
JT?
I agree 100%.
All right. JT, you go first. Kadarius Toney for Trey Lance. This is a super flex dynasty.
2 guys I absolutely cannot stand. I don't like either of these players. I guess if you had to get production now, Toney, if you're taking a flyer that Trey Lance becomes something one time and you're stashing, or if you have Dak, I could see I would probably trade. If I had Dak, I'd trade Kadarius Toney for Trey Lance, hoping that Trey Lance backs him up.
Yeah, man.
This is just a trash for trash challenge trade. Everybody loses here.
I always hate the quarterback in these situations in a super flex dynasty league, so I'll have to do it. But if I had to take Trey Lance as the backup for Dak Prescott in case Prescott went down, I'd be really, really sad. But Quentin Johnson for Roshan Johnson and Sky Moore.
To me, that's an overwhelming win for Roshan and Sky Moore.
It's my trade.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%.
Hunter Renfrow for Donald Parham. That's kind of a milk toast one also.
Yeah, it just depends if you need tight end or wide receiver, right? I guess if you need a tight end, then Parham. But if you had, it doesn't matter in a vacuum.
I mean, Renfrow has barely been a rumor for the Raiders this year, which is kind of a scandal.
He's buzzing around for whatever reason. I got to know what. Luke Musgrave for Jamison Williams and Dawson Knox.
I get the appeal of Musgrave, but I think I want the sure thing in Knox, and not that Jameson is a sure thing, but I'll take a flyer on a young receiver, sure.
I was really high on Jameson coming out of the draft. I know he only had 1 good year in college, but at the same time, I'm getting all the, he's suspended he's hurt for a year, then he got suspension, he's fighting in practice, all these drop balls kind of stuff in practice, and I had to throw the towel in. This is another one of my trades. I went for Musgrave. I like Knox, but I just think Kincaid's the future here. Knox is just a tight end, touchdown-dependent player, which I'm kind of sick of having on my team when it's all he needs is touchdowns to be productive. I want Musgrave for the future because I already have Darren Waller as my starting tight end. In case of an injury, I just went with somebody a little bit more who I thought the future was a little more bright for anyway. So Trey McBride in an early 4th for Alec Pierce in a late 3rd. So some dummy took Alec Pierce off my roster. This is a me and JT trade.
Yeah,
I
made this trade. I want to see what Andy thinks about this trade.
I actually just kind of like this trade. Like this seems like a perfectly fair trade that I can imagine, somebody light at end and somebody light at receiver. Like I actually think Pierce suits what Anthony Richardson can do well long term perfectly, right? Like that sort of deep ball guy. Like I think the Pierce Richardson thing could really develop and get interesting. I also think that Trey McBride is really good, and this Zach Ertz business is super annoying to me because I thought I was in the stadium at an Iowa Colorado State game a couple of years ago where Trey McBride they couldn't stop him. He looked like an Iowa tight end out there. Like that kid's really good, and I think long term he's going to be like at some point Trey McBride is definitely going to be a tight end one in fantasy. So I just kind of like this trade both ways.
I 100%, and we've talked about this before. JT is a season ticket holder for the Colts. He loves Alec Pearson. He just fits the Anthony Richardson, drop back and throw deep kind of persona here. So yes, it's a win-win for both teams in my opinion, especially with the 3rd and 4th round pick. Those are really, like 10%, maybe even less than 10% chances lottery tickets. So team needs. That's what both of us wanted. So it is what it is. Andy, you got like 2 more minutes or no?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. So every week we do a team evaluation. It's from the Mighty McGlynn home leagues also. It's we try to see if it's a simple rebuild or a full-scale remodel. These are 12-team, 30-man deep rosters, no kickers, no defenses. Super flex, 5 for touchdown, 2 for interception. It's tiered PPR. It's a half point for wide receiver, full point for running back reception, and 1.5 for tight end reception. What's the biggest needs for this team? When you look at this team, what direction are you going and why? This is year 3 of a dynasty league. Buddha is this team. Me and him have been in a championship for the first 2 years of the league. He won year 1. We split it year 2 because of the Damar Hamlin situation. This year he started out 0-2, and he's in a really tough division this year, which I'm not sure. He's probably the 3rd best team in his division. Is this a trade future picks away, or trade for future picks, or go for the ship kind of situation he's in right now? I know it's the beginning of the season, and it's 0-2 is not the end of the world. He's got 1 first, 2 seconds, 2 thirds next year, and all the rest of his picks going forward for the next 2-3 years. So that's the situation he's in. So I'm going to share my screen here and show you the team we are discussing. Let me make sure I share that screen correct. Oh shit.
John, while you're pulling up the team, I'll kind of dive into this. I actually like this team a lot. I think if AR comes back as his second QB and puts up the stats that he can, I think his weakest spot, obviously, if JT comes back with JT and McCaffrey, he's looking really good at running back. His biggest need is wide receiver. He does have Jaden Reed on his bench, which I think is a start over KJ Osborne. If he's got those couple extra first-round picks, maybe that's where I'm making my move, is I'm trying to maybe move a pick or 2 for a wide receiver. Because that's where I feel like this team is struggling, is it needs a wideout.
I don't think there's any question about what this team needs. This is a pretty dire situation at wide receiver, right? Like I would try to win right now because I've got Jalen Hurts, I've got Christian McCaffrey, I've got some pretty serious pieces here that, could be absolute golden ticket players in most fantasy leagues. I've got depth at running back that I can probably trade from. I've got, not only Anthony Richardson, who's going to be super exciting, but I've got like a decent backup situation at quarterback too. But this team probably needs 2 receivers. There's a couple of different routes I can imagine going. I mean, the most obvious thing is to try to flip, 1 or more running backs for, maybe it's like a Jonathan Taylor for 2 wide receiver 2s, something like that. I can also imagine trying to get another 1st-round pick next year and try to get myself in on that Marvin Harrison Jr. action. I wouldn't trade out of next year's 1st round. I think it's too good.
Yeah, that's if you can get like somebody right now who's underproducing like a JSN, and a 1st-round pick for one of these stud receivers, like I think that would put you in a situation, or one of these stud running backs. If you could trade the JT right now to somebody who just who's a running back away, or if you could trade for like Christian McCaffrey for like JSN and maybe a 1st and a 2nd next year, and put yourself in a situation to have Junior and JSN and another pick also, I think that you'd be in a really good situation as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a big. These running backs are not spring chickens. They're they're older.
Yeah.
McCaffrey's older. So you need to make a situation. Judy's hurt, and I think his expectations were really high before this season, before he got hurt. And I don't think he's going to pan out the way people, were initially envisioning him to be the main guy in this offense with a humongous target hog. So I don't know what the story is going to be there. Rashid Shaheed is just a fill-in right now. KJ Osborne, same thing. Evan Ingram is a great producer. I'd keep him, if you plan on rebuilding, not trade away. But again, this is one of those things where you either have to go all in or all out. You can't be in the middle. You can't trade away one or two guys, because if you get rid of McCaffrey, or if you get rid of McCaffrey and his next Jonathan Taylor, that pretty much nukes this team. At that point in time, I would try to trade for second, third round picks for almost all the rest of these guys. Try to trade Judy away for someone who loves Judy in their league, like Nick Scripp or something like that, or somebody who's Google eye over Jerry Judy. Josh Kelly right now has got some value a little bit. Najee Harris, we all saw what happened on Monday Night Football. He looked like he looked terrible. So he's getting supplanted at the running back position.
I was going to say that I would probably go to the managers who just lost, Chubb, Barkley, Eckler. Number one, you can probably shop Kelly to whoever had Eckler. I might package Harris and Warren and just try to, get rid of my shares of the Pittsburgh backfield altogether. Like, I think Warren's fine, but this is like, I heard some people trying to make this comparison to like Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard last year. There's no Tony Pollard here. Like, I don't think Warren's that guy. I think he's definitively better than Harris right now, but I also don't think he's a star in waiting necessarily. So I might package both of those guys to try to upgrade at receiver.
Yeah, he's a great complimentary back. And most of the time when I start a Dynasty League, the first thing I do is I trade away whatever I need to trade away to make sure I got two good quarterbacks. And him having Ertz and AR to start this franchise with, I'm Hurts and AR to start this franchise with. That is absolutely fantastic. He needs one more good, solid quarterback as a quarterback 3 in case of injuries or bye week, stuff like that, just to kind of fill in. But if he can get rid of some of these running backs and get some picks and pick up some really good players and start this rebuild process, in another probably year, in probably 2 years, he'd be with those two quarterbacks, real good draft picks, and players coming up the pipeline with extra picks in 25 and maybe even 26 if he can get them. He could do a lot with this team with the quarterbacks he has. JT, last.
That's for me. Like I said, either you gotta either go or get out. Like, he's either got to trade for some wide receivers to make a run this year, or he's got to turn around and start trading off assets and more than one and dump some of these guys and get a bunch of picks or other players in return and kind of shoot for the moon next year. So I do one of the. I think this team can compete if he can get one or two wide receivers. If he could go after some older players like maybe a Keenan Allen, I like that idea. But if he can't pull a trigger on those guys, I would start trying to move some of these running backs and try to get a bunch of picks that teams are desperate because of injury.
If you can wait 2 weeks and get JT back from an injury, from the suspension or whatever, his supposedly IR situation, his holdout, and then he can get rid of the 2 Steelers running backs and get a good wide receiver on his team for them, I think, that would be a Jaden Reed or, somebody else like that, or Marvin Mims even, and then some, and then a lot more, obviously. But, Andy, I agree with you 100% there. So 117, that wasn't the worst show ever. Me and JT had some pretty bad shows, 3.5 hours, something like that. So, Andy, thanks for sticking around. This is what we do for fun on the Commissioner Evaluation Show. We just kind of, whenever we get every Tuesday, every Wednesday, usually we do Tuesday nights so we can hit the waiver wire stuff, but, Wednesday's fine too. I really appreciate you coming on today. This is a Commissioner Evaluation. And let everybody know where they can find you at, all the good stuff you do in the fantasy world, all that kind of stuff.
John, I always enjoy hanging out with you. This is a blast. Thanks for having me. Super fun. Again, you're a walking party, so it's always a good time. Always a good time when you're around. Yeah, I mean, like, you can see where I am on Twitter. I reply to people all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do as a fantasy analyst, is just go back and forth with people. So find me there.
JT, everybody knows where you're at, but let them know one more time.
Yep. I'm at JT Orange on the X, and then check out the Stew with JT Brew on the Dynasty Pros Football channel, doing betting shows, Debbie shows, fantasy football breakdown, a little bit of everything over there. So check me out there.
What do you know about that word Debbie, Andy? You like that or what?
Oh man, I actually I'll tell you, I like to keep my college fantasy separate from my from my NFL fantasy. I might just become too obsessive if I dove fully into the Devy world. I'm not in there yet because I just don't want to be one of those like recruiting guys. I don't want to have to track beyond following like who Iowa is recruiting.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to know who the best high school players are. I don't want to be in that business.
I get it 100%, 100%. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate everybody coming out for the commissioner evaluation. And we'll see you next week. Have a good day. Have a good week. Have a good week this week.